Thank you so much for having me out to this event this afternoon. So, like she said, I'm running the primary Jamie Herrera Butler because of her vote for the impeachment of President Trump. But it's not just that. Like the lady here in the front row said, uniparty garbage. We've seen it for far too long. We've seen these establishment Republicans come in and tell us that they're going to go and fight for us and they're not going to stand this encroachment on our rights that we've all seen progressively over the last, starting a couple decades ago, but really in the last couple years, how much the left wants to attack everything in our society that we hold dear, that our founders gave us the rights to hold dear. So we see what the left has been doing, what they've been up to. They've started attacking the family, they've started attacking traditional values, and they've been doing that in a very deliberate way through our education system. They've started pushing this radical Planned Parenthood, transsexual agenda. And that's done for a very specific reason. We all like to call out the left and say, aren't they silly, aren't they foolish, aren't they hypocrites? And they are, but it's all very deliberate. They're going after the families in order to weaken us. They want to redefine what men and women are and all that, and make sure that we can't get together like we're doing right now and push back and fight against them. So the next step of that we saw took place, I'd say, in November of 2020, when the presidential election had massive discrepancies, massive evidence of voter fraud, and then the left came in full step with the media, in full step with social media, in full step with these bureaucrats, technocrats, and the labor unions, and said, no, be quiet. You guys can't even ask any questions. If you do, we're going to call you terrorists, insurrectionists, racists, which is pretty funny considering the breakup of this room right here. We got it's a pretty diverse crowd right here, so I just laugh at when they call us racist considering the history of the Democrat Party. But anyways, what they're doing is very deliberate. So we like to call them out, but it's all for a reason. So they're trying to erode our families. We see what big tech has done, and that's the threat right there, because we're all tied to this technology. It's like everyone is. So now if you stick your head up, they'll go ahead and they'll pull you off. We saw what they did to President Trump. We've seen what they've done to Parler. Countless other examples of them going after patriotic Americans. So seeing this, I started to recognize major patterns and things that I had seen overseas. So I was fortunate. I was born right here in the Pacific Northwest. I'm about to be 41 years old. So when I was growing up, everything was peaceful, man. America was great. America's an amazing place to grow up. So I didn't have the foresight that a lot of these speakers from communist countries had. So I was oblivious to how bad things could get until I served overseas in the military, until I watched the bottom of society fall out in places like Iraq and Yemen. So seeing what the Democrats were doing, the way that they were going after elements of our society, going after our family units, and then being able to label people, which is something that ISIS does, extreme terrorist groups do, oppressive governments, that's what they do. So seeing these tactics used against us, I knew that I had to do something. I didn't know exactly what I wanted to do until Representative Butler did what she did and voted for the impeachment. And that was, to me, that was a sign. I was like, okay, if I don't stand up and do something right now, I'm not going to be able to look my kids in the eyes and say, hey, this is the country that your mother gave her life for.
That's right.
So the last thing the left wants us to do is this exactly right here, is get together with each other, organize the grassroots, get involved in all these different communities. And so that's why they completely and totally exploited the COVID lockdowns from last year. When the pandemic first hit, everybody was scared. This time last year, we didn't have any information. So we all followed the guidance, 2 weeks to slow the spread, got it. But then after that, power is a drug. I think the people who've lived through totalitarian regimes, communist regimes, they'll tell you that. They always want more. So what happened with our government? Our Governor Inslee, they all got drunk with power. And then they realized they could use it against the one person that was standing in their way, President Trump. So they locked us down. They took away our ability to go to school, to go to church, to organize, to open our businesses. Like these business owners, like the gentleman who was nice enough to let us gather here today, I can't even imagine what they've gone through in the last year. They're not even allowed to have their own livelihoods. So when we look at all this, we have to continue to organize and continue to push back and realize what the left is doing. They're passing legislation right now, H.R. 1, that's going to normalize the 2020 election. That's going to make widespread voter fraud essentially the norm. Pass out mail-in ballots to everybody. young lady up here talked about the machines. It's going to normalize machine counting voting. It's going to purge all roles, and we're not going to be able to take roles of who belongs in what precinct station. That's pretty much going to let the federal government stick their thumb on the scale of any election. They're normalizing this. So they take away our First Amendment rights with the COVID lockdowns, take away our ability to vote, negate our social contract we have with our government with H.R. 1. And this last week, we saw the ruling from the Ninth Circuit Supreme Court, the Court of Appeals come down, trying to take away our Second Amendment rights. And then H.R. 127 and countless other resolutions and bills that they're passing right now at a breathtaking speed. So we are right now on the cusp of losing our freedoms. I hate to say that, it scares me. And I never thought I'd see it here in America. But seeing the way that the left is attacking us, I know that we have to organize. And this is what I did in the military for 20 plus years in the intelligence community. I built networks like this to push back against oppressive governments. That's what Green Berets do. We build networks of local people, local experts, and we push back and we take down oppressive regimes and systems. So that's exactly why I'm running for Congress. I wish that I didn't have to run for Congress. I wish that politics could be a endeavor taken up by, I'd say, civilized people who have nuanced disagreements on policy. But that's not the way the left is playing this right now. They're throwing everything at conservatives. And I know everyone here in this room, I'm preaching to the choir. The people that come from oppressive governments that escaped that and are now here in the States, Patriot Prayer has been fighting it. So you guys have been on the front lines for this, and I want to go to D.C. and fight for you in D.C. Because this unitary government is what we have to replace. We can't rely on the traditional Republicans anymore. Almost all of them have sold us out. The impeachment vote was just really one thing. It was just a catalyst. I mean, the border crisis, we can try to tie that back to all the rhino Republicans who didn't support Trump, sending the emergency funds and the military down to secure the wall. I lived through the endless wars. The Democrats want to keep those going. The rhino Republicans all get paid from it. The examples are countless. So that's what I want to do. I want to continue to serve you. I want to go forward and help represent this amazing movement right here in Washington, D.C. So if you can, please go to joekentforcongress.com. I have all my stances on the various issues right there on the website. There's email, you can communicate with me directly on there. And if you can, any donation will really help. There's a link on there to the donation page. I'm in a war for resources against the Uniparty, the establishment, and Jamie Herrera Butler. So anything you can contribute really helps. I have a sign-up sheet as well in the back. I've got some buttons and some pamphlets as well. So thank you all very much. I appreciate it.